Welcome to this episode of the Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast brought to you by Comfort Mechanical Contractors, Durham's premier commercial HVAC installation and service company. For more information, go to comfortmc.com or call 919 383 2502. I'm your host, Brian Kennedy, alongside my co hosts, Josh Cox, Jamie Holt, and Scott Medlin. And this past Saturday was not what any of us thought the outcome was going to be as Louisville, let's just call it like it is, destroyed Duke 23 to nothing. We'll get into our thoughts here in just a second, but as always, we've got to hear from the man himself. Here is Coach Mike Elko post game after the loss.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to Louisville. They physically got after us today, and that's me. That's my job. My job is to get this team ready to go physically, and we didn't answer the bell that way. I thought, the way we started was really flat on both sides of the ball. Got behind 14-0 on the road against a really good football team, and that hasn't been our recipe since I got here, and cost us to chase the game a little bit. And in chasing the game, we never found ways to get our footing on offense. I thought defensively, we were able to battle. And in the second half, I thought we responded finally defensively and started playing a little bit closer to what we need to play like. But we just never could get in any kind of rhythm at all on offense. Running the ball, throwing the ball, nothing. And so, penalties were a huge factor. We committed way too many to have success on the road, and that's on me as the head football coach. I've got to figure out how to get that cleaned up and fixed. Inefficiency, putting us in third and long, inefficiency on third down, just you name it. We weren't good enough at it today. And so, I got to evaluate what we're doing. I got to figure out how to do it better. I got to figure out how to put these guys in better positions to be successful because we don't have much time. And Wake Forest is coming Thursday night, and so we got to respond. So from there, questions.
And again, that was head coach Mike Elko giving his thoughts post game after the 23-0 loss to the Louisville Cardinals in Louisville. And fellas, as I stated before, this was one of those games coming in, could have been a season definer, I guess you could say, heading into the latter part of the season. Obviously, it was a big game repercussion wise as far as who could potentially go to the ACC title game. I got to tell you, Louisville's for real. Let's just call it like it is. I mean, Mark Packer even said it last week's episode that Louisville was untouchable at home. They certainly showed that against the Duke Blue Devils, but let's just dive right into this one and let's just talk about this unfortunate loss.
Yeah, I mean, it was a butt whooping, man. For the first time, in 2 years, it seems like this Duke team just did not show up and then didn't show up throughout the game. We had an instance last year in the Georgia Tech game where we didn't show up. But in the midway through the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, we finally did wake up and took that game to overtime and really should have won that game. This game, I mean, we rolled over from it seemed like the very first play from scrimmage. We weren't there and we never showed up the entire game. And so, I'm sure there's a collective sense of ownership of who gets the blame there. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think what's frustrating to me personally is this gave me feelings of 2 and 3 years ago, of just kind of the rollover and play dead a little bit, and that's you know we're not perfect and we can't be perfect, but when it doesn't seem like we give the effort, that's what frustrates me. That's my initial thought.
I was gonna say, yeah, it just, man, I it took us the breath away after watching that first drive. I mean, we knew Jordan was going to play, and the kid, he lived up to the bill. I mean, he had his way. The holes were there. There were a couple times that they lined up, and they showed it on TV, where basically everybody's on one side. It's two linemen, two different players, and the running back. Well, duh. They ran it to the side where nobody was, and boom, that's a 30-yard gain. I mean, you could see it coming sometimes. And it's frustrating. And I mean, we all got frustrated about it. I mean, it is what it is. At this point, to be where we're at, I'm happy with the last year's team is not this year's team. Last year, we didn't have any injuries. This year, we're dealing with injuries. And that's something we'll cover later, I know. But that's something we have to take into consideration. I mean, these guys are out there. We got new guys, guys are getting in the roles and things like that. This is what regular football teams go through. They go through injuries and things like that, and you have to have the next man up. And sometimes you swing and you miss. You can't bat 1,000. I know it's a baseball analogy, but you can't bat 1,000 every time.
Look, I thought we were going to get beat by 50. The way it started, it seemed like it. Louisville was up, what, 17 to nothing by the half. And they won 23 to nothing. So Duke had their chances in the second half to do some damage, make a dent in the lead, but the offense was, I don't know. I don't even know what I saw out there. It was bad all the way around. You couldn't run the ball, couldn't throw the ball, and that pretty much does you in when you can't run the ball and you can't throw the ball. You're not you're not gonna do too well in football. Um, it is like Scott said, it is what it is. This is the first time in Elko's tenure that we've seen a Duke team just come out and lay an egg like this. It was shocking. I didn't expect that. We knew Louisville was a powerhouse, especially at home. They look very beatable on the road, but at home they look like they're a national championship team. Um, so and they did what a lot of people thought they would do, but we thought that Duke would at least put up a fight, even if we lost in Louisville. We figured Duke would at least put up a fight, and that just didn't happen Saturday afternoon, unfortunately.
Well, quote Dennis Green, they were who they thought they were. Whatever the quote was, I just completely botched that. But yeah,
They are who we thought they were.
thank you. There we go. There's my botch for this episode. There's probably going to be more. Yeah, it was just one of those games where in the last 2 years, if this Duke team got down, collectively it was like, okay, slow start, we'll get back into this. But there wasn't a time in that game where I personally was like, oh, this is going to be the momentum that we need. This is going to be where it swings. Guys, Riley was only 9 of 23, 121 yards, had that interception. I mean, we're not here to place blame or anything, and I'm not saying that. He just looked off. Let's just call it like it is. I think that let's be honest, the ankle is still bothering him. You can tell that. I think there were some runs he tried to go. He just couldn't get the giddy up speed like he usually does when he's the giraffe and he's healthy. Um, but yeah, I mean, this was the one area that really surprised me. And this is a shout out to Louisville's defensive line. Our leading rusher for the game was Jordan Waters, 23 yards on 5 carries. Held Duke's rushing tandem. Let's see, I'm looking at the stats right now. It was him and Jaquez. They were the only 2 running backs, along with Riley, to have touches. 51 yards total. You're not gonna win football games doing that. And again, give credit where credit's due. Jawar Jordan, I texted this to the guys. I really thought he was going to go for 250 and 4 touches with the way that offensive line just manhandled Duke. Now, Jacob Monk went down with an ankle injury. He tried to come back in, just couldn't do it. It is what it is. Graham was out, like Scott was saying. And we'll get into the injury discussion more later on in this episode. But it's just this was the first time in Coach Elko's 21 games at Duke where every facet of the game Duke was outplayed, outmanned, outmatched. Maybe except for the punting. I mean, just to try to put some humor into it, I mean, Porter had 334 yards of punting yards. So I mean, so NFL scouts, if you were watching the game, then there you go. But yeah,
Let me ask you guys a question. Can I ask you a question
Yeah,
about it before
sure.
we move on?
Yeah.
Jawar Jordan. Brian mentioned him. Jamie, we've all mentioned him, or you guys have all mentioned him. The first game of the season, we had Maffa and Shipley, that combo. Then we had Estime, Notre Dame. What are your guys' thoughts? In my opinion, from what I saw Saturday, now we were not there in person. From what I saw, give me Jawar Jordan over all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, I would take Jordan and then Estime. Like that would be my rankings. He was legit. Like he was amazing. We helped make him look like prime Barry Sanders, but you know but I mean he was hitting the holes fast and hard. That was
Here we go. Let's see. 8 minutes and 54 seconds in, and Jamie just made himself lose it. Love it.
Well, I mean, let's be honest though. If you watch some of the pursuit plays, and we mentioned it earlier, Duke looked like they were in quicksand. it was, I mean, the feet were moving, but the body wasn't. And there were a couple plays where he didn't get touched till the 10th or 12th yard. And at that point, I mean, you already have a first down. So that O line did a great job. They frustrated our defensive line. They moved us around, and I it, so I'll come back devil's advocate real fast. Was that the best O line we've seen all year?
Yes.
Or
I know, man. They were so good in the
yes,
trenches, man.
that's the thing. It was it Jordan, or was it the line, or was it both?
It was both.
Yes to
And
everything.
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
I mean, when you have a perfect plan, and that's what Coach Brom did. He had a perfect plan, and then they just ran those little swinging gate passes out there. I mean, you already got 7 or 8 yards there too when you're catching the ball. You're basically running from behind trying to catch someone, and that's basically what Duke did the whole day.
I think it's interesting. If you look at the very first play from scrimmage for Duke, we tried to run a little stretch zone read, and we couldn't tiptoe our way out of the backfield, and it looked terrible. The very first play from scrimmage from Louisville, they ran a stretch play to the right side outside, and guess what happens? He finds the edge, finds the corner, and almost rushes for a first down. And like honestly, if you just take those two plays in a nutshell, that's the way the rest of the game went.
Louisville did to Duke what Duke has been doing to all of the other opponents this year. You know, not to sound negative, but Duke got a taste of its own medicine this past weekend, and they couldn't stop Jordan. They couldn't stop the offense. And again, it's one game. We get it. Coach Elko and the staff, they're going to get ready for this weight game coming up Thursday night. But this is just one of those games where you just take your medicine and move on. It's just it sucks because we thought this was going to be the defining game to not only get Duke closer to a rematch against FSU and Charlotte, but just to continue to prove the naysayers wrong. But Louisville, again, they are showing the national media that they are here to stay. And I mean, look out FSU because this Louisville team is going to be dangerous in Charlotte if they make it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
you
would say
win
go
you
go ahead,
win
Jay.
games on the line of scrimmage. So,
Mhm.
and both defensive line and offensive line for Louisville dominated the entire game. So that's going to tell you right there which way the game's going from the start. I mean, you could see it from the first touchdown. I mean, I
Mhm.
felt like the game was over on the first touchdown. Like that's how bad it felt. And it just never got any better throughout.
And you cannot let Louisville beat you twice. They won last Saturday. This Thursday night's a different ball game. Everything about it's going to be different. And if if we come out there with the attitude that Louisville, thinking about Louisville, we could get a mud hole stomped on us. And that's just not something I think is going to happen. I think this is going to be, and we'll get into this in a minute, but I think it's going to be this will be probably the best prepared we've been in a while coming into the ball game.
That's a great transition, Scott, because potentially what happened from that Florida State game was a little bit of that moving into Louisville. I think we may have been still in Tallahassee a little bit, and now moving forward. But yeah, we're going to transition. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about it because we're going to take your questions. And you guys had a lot of questions in the mailbag this week about that. But before we do our mailbag, we're recording this on Monday night. Earlier this evening, the ACC released a schedule, a format beginning next season that's supposed to last until I believe 2030. And so, obviously, with the addition of Cal, Stanford, and SMU, that everything's going to look a little bit different. Fortunately for your Blue Devils, things are going to look a little different, but not a whole lot different. And so, we're going to talk just briefly. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but a little bit of our thoughts on Duke keeping the Wake Forest, North Carolina State, and Chapel Hill College in-state rivalry together. Guys, what do you think about the schedule release? Brian, we have to go to you first.
I'm just happy they got all the way through 2030, but I know it's not going to mean a hill of beans because in 3 years, there's probably going to be half the teams going to the Big Ten, the SEC. It's going to be a whole thing. But regardless, thank you, ACC, for keeping the state, the North Carolina, and the Wake games protected for the foreseeable future. I know that a lot of Duke fans were kind of worried that the state game that came back on as a yearly game was going to be removed promptly with the addition of SMU, Cal, Stanford. Just a couple of things that I noted from 24 to 30, and these are just my thoughts really quick. FSU is coming back to Wallace Wade next year. That was not the original plan. The original plan was for FSU to come in 2025. So Duke gets to see if they can get some revenge on the Seminoles next year. So that will be interesting to see. After that, they will not see each other until 2027 if all things hold up in the ACC. Duke's first cross-country trip is not happening until 2025 when Duke will head to Berkeley to play the Cal Bears. So hard hat guys, I hope you're getting your travel plans already in order. That'll be a fun thing. Jamie, what is that, like a 54-hour drive from Durham to Berkeley?
Yeah, I'll split it up in thirds. I'll start on like a Tuesday, and then I'll get there eventually.
There you go. The other thing that I found interesting, Clemson and Duke are going to have a home and home in 2025 and 2026. I believe Clemson was another one of those teams where we weren't going to see them for 3 to 4 years with the old 3-5-5 format. But that's good to see home and home, Death Valley, and then back into Wallace Wade. The big surprise, and fellas, again, this is down the road, anything could happen, was the fact that Duke was not going to travel to Dallas to play SMU until 2030. They're going to be playing Cal. They're going to go to play Stanford. They're not going to Dallas until 2030 if everything holds up. That was very surprising to me. And here's the other wild card that people are forgetting about, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's still going to be playing a lot of ACC schools. And from what I saw on FBSschedules.com, which is a great site if you're looking for future matchups, they don't have Duke and Notre Dame playing until 2030 as well. Now, obviously, that could change with Notre Dame trying to schedule all these non-conference opponents or conference opponents with ACC. But I found that very interesting that Duke and Notre Dame have not set a playing year until the year 2030. So those were some quick hits of what I saw. But again, ACC, thank you so much that State, UNC, and Wake are going to be on Duke's schedule every year.
Yeah, I look forward to the going to NC State next year because I've been to a couple of State games, and State, let's be honest, has the best atmosphere in the Triangle area. So I've been to a couple of State games, but they've been like smaller teams. So I look forward to heading right down the road from me. Actually, I'm like 10 minutes from the stadium to go see Duke play.
But that's your secondary home, not your primary home. We know that, Jamie.
That's not where the CFO stays every night. So, looking at next year's schedule, especially, love the fact that we play the three in-house schools. When we go to Winston, go to Raleigh, we go to that other place down in Miami that we own, down there at the beachfront, where there's about 12 people there every game. So another place that we get to go to and visit. Looking forward to seeing SMU, Chapel Hill College, Virginia Tech, and let's be honest, Florida State without Travis next season sounds wonderful. Sounds like a great opportunity for him to come to Durham and see how we play against them.
The one caveat that did change for next year's schedule, Duke went from having 7 home games and 5 away games to now going 6 and 6, 6 home games, 6 away. I know it doesn't mean that much, but again, that would have been more home games for fans to go to. Josh, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know you love to plan.
Man, I love it.
6 years in advance.
I mean, I've really been stressing over this 2025 matchup with Middle Tennessee State that I'm not sure how it's going to go there if we head to Nashville. But no, honestly, the major takeaway for me is obviously this upcoming season. That's the only thing that matters to me. And I do actually like the Florida State matchup, but obviously be with no Jordan Travis, and there'll be a completely different feel on that team. And then obviously we've already mentioned the in-state stuff, so like I'm cool with that. And like you said, Brian, to start it out, there's no telling. Give us another year or two, and we'll be adding some new members or losing members, and we'll be restructuring the schedule all over again. So
I think we just lost 2 members as we were talking about this. So we're back to 15. We're looking for some replacements.
Exactly.
I kid. But yeah, that's just our quick thoughts. Again, this is a very fluid thing. And I'm sure the ACC reps, Commissioner Phillips, hopes this is a way to keep everything together with this scheduling 6 years in advance to make everyone as happy as possible. But that was just our quick thoughts on this. Again, anything could change in the coming months or years, but we'll transition. We'll head on to the mailbag. Again, not the weekend that we expected, but I know some of you had some questions concerning Louisville. We're also going to talk about our upcoming opponent, Wake Forest. As always, we thank each and every one of you for submitting your questions. Another full mailbag this week. So, Jamie, let's go ahead and get this party rolling. What's the first question?
And we're coming in hot with it from Twitter, from X. I'm sorry, not Twitter. I keep on calling it Twitter. From JD at FishFry02. He came in with a deep question, maybe the deepest question we've ever had.
Oh, boy.
What would you say to a new Duke football fan, kid or adult, that may be ready to jump ship?
Oh, my gosh.
And I for one, when I saw this question, I thought back to 11-year-old Jamie, because 11-year-old Jamie was a fan of a winning team, because Steve Spurrier was here.
1972.
Steve Spurrier was here, but then Steve Spurrier left, and then we got Barry Wilson, which God bless him. He wasn't a good coach. Then we got Fred Goldsmith.
We had one good season.
We had one good season with Fred Goldsmith.
Oh,
a great season. Oh, Hall of Fame bowl. Then we got Carl Franks.
Okay, thank you for the Jamie Holt fandom history. What is your advice to these fans that might be considering of jumping ship after this?
Keep the faith. Keep pounding, if you will.
Keep pouting.
Because it turns around. I mean, it turns around. Look, it turned around. Coach Cutcliffe came. We got a winner. Unfortunately, his tenure ended under unfortunate circumstances. But then we get Coach Elko in, and we've won. And look, we're 5-3. Had anybody told the three of us at the start of there's four of us. The four of us at the start of the season.
I'll leave now.
That we'd be 5-3 at this point. I think we'd all have taken it, right?
So the four of us, not the three of us, the four of us have been Duke fans for as long as you can remember. If you are a new Duke fan and you're listening to this or you're watching this, let me put some things into perspective for you. These are probably the best times that this program has seen since Eddie Cameron and Wallace Wade. If I'm being completely one-on-one with you, if you're looking at me right now, Duke from 95 to 2007 went 22-125. Those were the dark ages. Josh, you can stare at me all you want, big boy. Those were the dark ages of Duke football. Folks seem to forget that David Cutcliffe's first 4 years were rough. 15-33. Cutcliffe and his staff did not make a bowl game until the Chick-fil-A Bowl in 13. No, the Belk Bowl. I'm sorry, 2012, the Belk Bowl. Yes, thank you. But even then, so to the fans that are upset about the Louisville loss, completely understand. As we stated earlier, that was not the result we expected. But let's pump the brakes. Knowing this coaching staff, they're going to find a way to get back on track. The last time Duke football was almost bowl eligible, I think 6 games in, was 2018. Another fun fact for you folks. Let's not take advantage of the situation. Last year was not an anomaly. Things are going to get back on track because Duke plays Wake, UVA, Pitt, and that other school 8 miles down the road. All winnable games from what we've seen out of those 4 teams these last couple of weeks. So if you're thinking about jumping ship, get back from the ledge. Let's get through these next 4 games, 5 games, I'm going to say, because they will go to another bowl game, and then make your decision then. Again, it was 1 game, the first game out of 21 in the Mike Elko era where Duke got outplayed. All right, I'm gonna step off my soapbox now. Sorry.
Yeah. So let me say a couple of things. First of all, Duke fans, you have every right to be frustrated and every right to be pissed off about what happened on Saturday. Look, that's what fanhood is about, right? You're high when your team is on a high, and then your team's not on a high and you react however. And I get it, the anger and the pessimism, I understand. But I do want to help, as the other guys have, put it in perspective. When this podcast started, we started this podcast, and the first season that we commented on games, we went 2-9. The second season that we had this podcast, and that we commented on games, and we had weekly pods every week after games. We went 3-9, and if I may, in that 3-9 season, we absolutely rolled over and played dead for the vast majority of those games. We were never in it. We should have never even shown up to play. It was horrific. The effort was terrible. The coaching was terrible. The playing on the field was terrible. And we came back every week and we talked about Duke football. And then Duke makes this hire with Coach Elko. And we all say, once again, I'm trying to give you perspective. The athletic director of Duke University says, hey guys, pump the brakes. Like, don't get too overconfident here. It's going to take some time for Coach Elko to build this program to where we're contending for ACC championships. That's literally what she said. And we go in the first year, and Duke winds up 9-4, playing above what anybody thought they would play. And this year, once again, perspective. We come into the season and we say, guys, I know we went 9-4 last year, but man, this schedule is brutal. Like, look at all the teams we have to go through in order to get a winning record, to be bowl eligible, to whatever. And I'll be honest with you, we were very positive. We always try to be positive and a little upbeat. Like in our season predictions, I bet all of us, we probably picked Duke one game higher than what we really felt in our heart they were going to do. Honestly. And so we try to stay positive. But here we go. Difficult schedule. Clemson, Notre Dame, Florida State. I, for one, picked us to lose to Louisville. Mark Packer came on last week and said how he had talked about how good they were going to be. Louisville has one loss. Florida State is undefeated. Louisville's one loss was a fluke. We were trying to figure out no Jawar Jordan, crazy fluke loss to Pitt, who Pitt is terrible. And they beat Notre Dame, and they beat the brakes off of Notre Dame. Louisville did. And so, like, Duke lost to an undefeated team, and then the team that's going to probably face them in Charlotte, more than likely, now the way it's looking, for the ACC championship. So, like, pump the brakes is the right word. Pump the brakes. It's going to be okay. Now, if something crazy happens, this team completely falls apart, Elko loses the locker room, whatever. You guys know this. We are fair about Duke football. If it becomes apparent that something crazy is going on, we'll talk about it, and we won't give anybody, we won't pull any punches. But at the end of the day, this was a bad game. Just like, by the way, all you Duke basketball fans, Duke basketball has one of these every single year. Like when you get on to Clemson, you get beat by 30. You go up to Virginia Tech, and you lose by 19. Like, it happens. It happens every year to Duke basketball, and it's fine. It just sucks when it happens to football because you only have, a smaller amount of games. But anyway, that's it. At the end of the day, Duke fans, this is exactly how this season was going to go. Like, 10-2 was great. We poked fun at Jordan, man, for picking him to go 10-2. He poked fun at himself. Like, this was a little bit more of a logical pace to this season, Brian.
But let's go back really quick. And Notre Dame's only lost 2 games too. We were a 4th and 16 away from beating Notre Dame. We were a third quarter or a quarter away from potentially beating Florida State had Riley not gone back down. If I'm playing devil's advocate, had we stopped Notre Dame on 4th and 16, Riley would have never been injured. Don't want to think about that. It happened. It is what it is. But the teams that we have lost to are good teams. Notre Dame's gotten their stuff together. Florida State's a national title contender. Louisville could be if they went out and beat Florida State in the ACC title game. So, again, we're not like the team 8 miles down the road who's losing to Georgia Tech and Virginia, a 1-5 school, and a now 4-4 school. Folks, it could be worse. Sorry.
All right, so I sent this earlier in the group chat, so I'm going to read it verbatim to exactly how I texted it. I will say this. I love the fact that losing sucks again to our fan base and that they are fired up to win. Lunatic fringe or not, which I think some of us are on there, and I would say I am head of that group 9 out of 10 times. It shows life, and I'm glad to see that people are acting like they actually care. Folks, this is what we've been talking about. The fact that you are so upset and you're so angry about losing the game Saturday means you care, means that this is something important to you. This is what Duke football means to you now. And that's what we've been trying to do and trying to help with for as long as we can. Was I mad Saturday? Oh, you better believe it. And I mean, I didn't yell, scream, hollered, and fuss, but I was inside steaming and boiling. But at the end of the day, Louisville was the better team. You could see from the first moment what was going to happen. You could look at Coach Elko because they showed him 1,001 times on the sideline. Like, what the heck is going on here? And at that point, it is what it is. So, hey, we get to play again Thursday night. We get a home game. We get Wake Forest, an in-state rival. Man, come out with that same enthusiasm Thursday night to watch the ball game and yell and scream and holler. Enjoy yourself. This is a great opportunity. If you're a fan, like the question said, this is the perfect time. You're in the perfect opportunity in the second year of the Elko era, and you're just on the ground floor. We haven't even got to the penthouse yet, baby. We're going to get there one day, but right now we're on the ground floor and we're building. And we're going to get up there one day and we're going to have the ACC championship opportunities. But right now, stay where you are, stay behind the man, pull for your Blue Devils. That's the biggest thing I can tell you.
Next.
I was going to say one more thing.
Okay,
Josh mentioned basketball, and then Scott mentioned the look on Elko's face. You could set it all. I was thinking about, well, we could think about what did Kate look like when he would lean back on the bench and fold his arms when we're getting trounced by NC State by 30 or something. But anyways, I'll move on. At the Duke of Cupa, given the ugly loss this weekend and our revolving door of key injuries, where do we see Duke's ceiling and floor the rest of the season? I'll take this one first because I think we're all basically going to say the same thing. The ceiling is clearly 9-3. They can beat everybody left on the schedule. Where we might differ is like my floor. I would say like 7-5 because I mean a loss at Chapel Hill College could happen, and what the heck happens against Pitt all the time? It seems like Pitt has our number. I don't think we lose to Pitt, but I'm gonna put our floor at 7-5. But I think we could be somewhere like 8-4, 9-3. Very possible.
Yeah. So ceiling, yeah, went out the rest of the games. That's very doable, very plausible. But these players, some of these guys have got to get back in order for that to happen. And Jamie, is there an injuries question? I don't want to get into it if there is.
Honestly, we had so many questions. I don't. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there is one.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll hold off on the whole injury thing. Here's the other thing. Yes, UNC is beatable. Georgia Tech proved it. Virginia proved it. Pitt's pretty much done because Narduzzi has completely lost that locker room after this past weekend's comments. He said, we lost a lot of guys and we thought we replaced them, but we didn't. And then you had players retweeting that going, oh, okay, cool. I see how you really feel about us. Virginia, and I'm going to continue to say this, could be a trap game. They beat North Carolina. Who did they play this week? And they almost won that game too, I feel like.
Miami in overtime.
Yes. So there you go. Another game that
at the
yeah, in front of 800 screaming fans. But if they get a couple wins before Duke goes up to Charlottesville, that could be a trap game. But I agree with Jamie. It could be 7-5. It could be 9-3. It just depends on who we get back healthy to play in some of these key roles.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, the ceiling is definitely the roof. All right, go ahead, Jamie. Next question. Unmute.
There's the mute button whooping me again. We had several people ask kind of the same question here, so I'm gonna just kind of list them. At B Porus 1 on Twitter, at Drive to 2015 on Twitter, and at Thomas H43454 and then on
8675309.
Then on Facebook, we had Peter Dodge, Seth Bishop, and Doug Brown also asked the same question. What do we think about Leonard resting this week and Grayson Loftus playing against Wake? Which, I mean, if he's injured, obviously.
I'll start.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I know the fan base, I get it. Like, I completely get it. I understand the logic behind it. Look, y'all know this from the time Grayson Loftus signed with Duke. He's communicated with us, a friend of the pod. Looking forward to his time when he gets to take that, right? If Riley Leonard can stand on that leg, he's playing. And like at the end of the day, that just is what it is. And he's earned that right. Um, and as he figured out in the Florida State game, he can play on it with it hurt. He's not going to hurt it any worse than what it's already hurt. And yeah, so as much as we think that would be fine, it's not going to happen. And number two, who in the world says that we're going to show up and play good? Uh, this is a different team than what played NC State. I mean, we trotted Henry out there against NC State and didn't have to throw the ball but one time in the second half. But man, I tell you what, this defense this past week, that wasn't the same defense that played NC State. And so, I know it's a different offense we're facing, but we cannot afford. I mean, look, I know we just talked about the roof and the floor, but this team needs to get bowl eligible. Like that is the number one goal right now. There's 5 wins. So this team's got to get bowl eligible. So I don't see that happening, even though I understand the logic behind it. And in a perfect world, we could do that.
I think you can do both. And here's what I'm going to say. If this Duke team gets back to the way it's been playing the first 6 games, or sorry, 5 games, you can have Riley play the first half. You get up enough on Wake Forest, let Grayson come in, get some more experience, get some more time to where, God forbid, if something else were to happen to Riley, but I'm not wishing that on anyone. At least not Henry. Grayson would have a little bit more experience. I mean, because it was garbage time against Louisville. I think everyone was just like, okay, let's get this down. Let's get over. Let's get on the buses. Let's go home. But again, if this Duke team shows back up and Riley performs, the defense performs like we know them to perform, yeah, end of the third, maybe even the fourth quarter, get Riley off to give him some extra time. This team's already going to have a 9-day rest before UNC, but get Grayson in there and get some more reps.
I'll give you my opinion, and that just means nothing in the grand scheme of things. My personal opinion was you rest him for the deep run. My personal opinion. However, knowing Riley and knowing the type of person that Riley is, Riley would have 2 broken legs and still quarterback if he physically could do it, because that's the kind of leader Riley Leonard is. And that's what we want from him. And he'll run through a brick wall. It doesn't matter what you do. And that's Coach Elko believes in him to the point where that's why Riley is playing right now. Is it does it feel like he may take a bad step? Because he took a couple bad steps. He had Jeremiah on one play where he took a bad step on that 4th down or 3rd down. It is what it is. He's still going to play through it. So at the end of the day, they know him better than I do. They have faith and confidence in him with 1 leg, 2 legs, 3 legs. Whatever he's going to take out there, number 13's out there playing football, and that's who our leader is. And we have ultimate confidence in whatever Coach Elko is going to let him do.
Well, to your point, Scott, and we saw it at the FSU game, he was begging, pleading with Elko to go back in. If he thought that he could get on both knees and look up to him and go like this to get in, he would have done it. But again, Elko was thinking long term. To your point, yeah, if he can stand, if he can move, Josh, you said it too, he's going to play.
All right. I'm going to shout out Sam at LA Dodgers all day. Anyways, even though we kind of covered this question already, he had a question about the overreaction of fans. So I'm just going to keep moving, but shout out Sam for his weekly question.
The streak's alive.
The streak stays alive. At PD Duke 85, Peter Dodge coming in again, not with a question this time, but he would like to hear the good Reverend Scott Medlin preach to the fans about coming out Thursday night.
Ooh, this is a sermon I was not prepared to deliver today. The Lord did not speak to me the way I was hoping that he would. However, I am ready to stand up at this pulpit and give you my 2 cents worth. Folks, again, the opportunity is there. This is a prime time opportunity. Duke football, 7:30 p.m., ESPN on a Thursday night. Folks, we were begging and pleading for this for years ago. We have not seen it till this season. We have every opportunity so far in these opportunity games to show what Duke football is all about. America likes to watch Duke football almost as much as they like to watch Coach Prime and Colorado football, because those games are right up there with Prime in them. And these games are a whole lot more exciting and close, and looks more like football. However, I know it's a Thursday night. Look, everybody's leaving work early on Thursday. Everybody's taking Friday off for the most part. You got to do it. It's just one of those deals. If you can't do it, do the best you can. If you can only stay till halftime, stay till halftime. Folks, it's an in-state rival. It's a team that we have had a hard time beating over the years. And it's Duke football. We only get 2 more chances this season in Wallace Wade. And we're 3 days away from it. And folks, it has stunk that we've been on the road the last couple weeks. Josh and I, we went to Florida State, and that was a fun experience. It really was. And I enjoyed it. Folks, if you can do something like that one time, you have to do it. It's a bucket list thing, in my opinion. The way that it went from they were tomahawk chopping and excited till in the fourth quarter when the place was shaking. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what that's what I want Wallace Wade to be one day, where we get in there in the fourth quarter like it was against Notre Dame, like it was against Clemson, and the place was going wild and screaming and hollering, going crazy. So that being said, if you can get tickets, come out. We'd love for you to be there. If you can't, so be it. Do the best you can. Look, I know we're never going to fill up Wallace Wade completely every game. I've been preaching that for 3-4 weeks now, but come if you can, be there. It's going to be some good football. I really think that Duke's going to come out and they've got some things to prove. So I believe Coach Elko has got them ready. I think he's going to have them ready, and I think Riley Leonard's ready to get that leg going one more time. So hey, if you can be there, be there. If not, watch it on television. At least help to bump the television numbers up because a lot of people won't watch that. Though, listen, let me fill you in on something. The Thursday night game on Prime, it doesn't really matter who it is. It's Duke football on ESPN at 7:30, so watch that.
Man,
Have thine own way, Lord.
let's bow our heads for prayer really quick. Hey, and one more thing. They're doing Second Chance Halloween for kids. I'm bringing my oldest. He's going to be dressed up as the Duke Blue Devil. So if you see him, give him 5. His name's Hudson. He loves the attention.
Yeah, just like his father.
No.
Oh, Lord. Where are we going now? Here's our injury question, Brian. I knew we had something. At TS Lester _ will we see Miles Jones again this year? And how big are the injuries to the O-line if they end up being long-term?
Okay, so Coach has not had his press conference yet. Again, we're recording Monday night. He's having his conference tomorrow after the team's practice. Hopefully one of us will be there. If not, we'll make sure to get the information and put it out there. So we alluded to this earlier, that we were very spoiled as a fan base last year because we did not have many injuries on this team. And heading into, what was it, guys? The Notre Dame game, we really didn't have that many injuries either. But let me just break this down for you. The biggest injury that we've taken so far that was a season ender was Eli. He got injured before the season started. Coach Elko came out. It was a season ender. Since then, Nicky Dalmollen's been out 2 to 3 games. Graham Barton's been out 2 games. Miles Jones, which we don't know the statuses of any of these guys. We don't have any insider knowledge. I'm just reading down who we have lost for a certain amount of games this year. Miles Jones, Jalen Coleman. What was his first game back, guys? Because I feel like it was the first 3 or 4 games he didn't even play.
State, wasn't it?
He came back and he was available, but he didn't actually play. That's
Okay.
what it was.
Right. Okay. You have Jacob Monk, who went down against Louisville, tried to come back, but it looked to be an ankle injury. Throw in Riley with his ankle injury. He's still going through that. And then we found out that Henry wasn't available really for the Louisville game.
Yep.
So if I'm counting this correctly, which I'm not good at math, 2, 4, 6, that's 8 injuries. And these are key position guys that we've been losing too. Compare that to last year. And we talked about this in our group chat during the day. Dorian Mausi, I think we lost him. Shaka Hayward near the end of the season. Anthony Nelson. That's it. No matter what team gets on the field, if they have injuries
Mo.
to keep Mo
Mo.
McIntyre.
No
Yeah.
matter.
I thought he was on there too. But
Yep.
going back, it doesn't matter if you're an Alabama, a Clemson, an Oregon, a Duke, whoever. If you have key injuries to your team, you're going to have your struggles. So you got to fight through it. Next man up mentality. And again, Coach Elko and the staff is going to do everything they can to have this team ready for Thursday night. It sucks, plain and simple. We have lost some key players, not for the season, but for the games where we could have used them.
I just want to say one thing about the whole Miles Jones experiment. Like, I have two things to say. Number one, we brought this kid in from Texas A&M to go up against the Florida States, to go up against the Notre Dames, to have the size on the edges so that we could compete with those wide receivers. And I'm just going to say it. He got hurt. It's a hammy that he keeps going back and forth with, right? But the time that we know of that he hurt it last was with 2.5 minutes to go in the NC State 24-3 blowout. And so my question that I will never ask Tyler Santucci or Ish, the cornerbacks coach, why in God's name was the oft injured Miles Jones in the game when we're up 21 points with 2.5 minutes to go? I'm not going to ask him that question in person because I get it. But like at some point in time, we got to think logically here, man. Anyway, that's my frustration with Miles Jones, because I think the guy is so freaking talented. When he's on the field, he's so good. He just can't stay on the field. Jamie.
All right. Next up is at Blade for Duke. And he says we need to figure out a way to beat Wake and use the extra couple of days to catch our breath before Chapel Hill College. He said, with that said, which position group do we most need to step up this week? And my first answer is the wide receivers. We need to catch the ball.
Boom. I'm gonna second that, Jamie. Not calling anybody out by name, but listen, we're looking like some 2 and 3 years ago wide receiving group. Can't get any separation, and when we do get separation, half the time we got butterfingers. And so, like, I don't know what the deal is. It's different. We were not like this early in the season. We were not this way, but it seems like there are safeties and corners draped all over us. We cannot get any separation for the whole game.
I'm just thinking about this, and y'all tell me if I'm thinking out in left field. Could it be because Riley might not be passing it like he was the first half of the year with his ankle and putting weight down?
I mean, it could be.
It could be because I'm wondering if they're slowing down more because they're waiting for Riley to. Maybe he's not going through his progressions as fast as he could with a bum ankle. I don't know. Just thinking about it, I don't
Yeah.
know, because to
I
your
mean,
point,
it doesn't say
nothing-
anything about the drops. The drops are just
Yeah.
inexcusable.
True.
Inexcusable.
And I mean, if you can't get separation and you're dropping the ball, what's a team like Louisville going to do? They're going to stack the box and they're going to stop that run game, because that's been our major point this year on offense is just running the football. But Louisville was like, nah, we're not going to let you run the football. Like, and if you can't complete any passes, here we go.
Florida
we
State
lose.
did the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And
Hey,
it's a loss.
I would say this: the slow mesh, the D line against that slow mess where they hold it for 15 seconds, and then you have to pick which one. My personal opinion: you tackle both of them and call it even. And that's, I think, what Dwayne Carter would do when the opportunity arises.
All right. At Ricky Calhoun 69. He said he heard this on another football podcast he listens to. If Riley Leonard decides to stay in college another year, is there a chance he transfers from Duke to put himself in more of a favorable situation to increase his draft stock? And we know that he got off. We don't know from who, but we know he got offers last year and he chose to stay at Duke. So, I mean, I guess there's always that possibility, but I feel like Riley would stay at Duke.
I've had people ask me that at work that have heard the same thing. I'll go back to something I said a little while ago. Riley Leonard is not that person. He's a team guy. Now, he may do it and prove me wrong. And if he does, hey, that's his thing. He can do what he wants to do. But I personally think Riley, if he comes back to play, he will be 100% Duke. And he is a Duke guy. He is the great rep for Duke football. And it would give him one more season to do that and also help his draft stock if he were to come back, as far as I'm concerned. That's my opinion.
I will say a couple of things have got to happen. Duke is going to have to hit that portal for that O line. They're going to have to. They got to keep him up on his feet. And this would probably be a great time for us to talk about our partnership with the Durham Devils Club, DurhamDevilsClub.com. At the end of the day, every single one of these players, the top 10 most talented players on Duke's roster, they will be, whether it's legal or not, they will be approached by other schools and they will be offered NIL deals or what they could potentially earn going to what other university. So this is a perfect opportunity. The guys didn't know I was going to do that, but it plays right in to
Hell of a
say, listen,
segue.
I know Duke has got to be honestly. Duke has got to lead out in this NIL thing. I listen, like from what I've been told, it's going to be the focus in 2024, like 100% focus on trying to get NIL where it needs to be. But I mean, honestly, we all want to think that Riley stays. And look, I love the kid. He's got an incredible family. Like they're awesome. He's awesome. But the guy's got to do what's best for him, right? And so, like at the end of the day, Duke just has to create the best possible environment for Riley. That's all they can do, and I think he stays.
All right. At Diablo 89122. He wants to know what our take is on why Duke can't seem to maybe come back this year like they did last year. Games like Pitt, Georgia Tech, UNC were all games where we were down and we were able to come back. Seems like this year, I guess he's saying this year when we get down, we get down. We're not. There's no coming back. I would say
Well,
Florida State's kind of different because I mean with Riley getting hurt, I feel like
that was a
yeah.
big injury situation. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jamie. I can't think of a game where these last two games. Correct me if I'm wrong. There hasn't been except these last two games where Duke has had to come back.
Well,
Clemson,
we came back against Clemson technically, right? Weren't we down 7-6 at halftime?
right? But that was after the
Uh,
muff punt. Technically, it should
yeah,
have been 6-0. But yeah, I mean,
and we came back on Notre Dame.
yeah.
They were winning, but
But again, the common denominator from games 1 to 6, we didn't have a lot of bad injuries. I'm going to keep preaching it because, again, it affects every team. If you have key injuries, it's going to affect how a team performs. I say in these next 4 games, if we've got our key nucleus back and there is a game to where Duke gets down and cannot come back, ask the question again. Who was it that sent it?
at Diablo 89122.
Okay, Diablo, seriously, if in these next 3 games, 3 to 4 games, if Duke has their core nucleus playing and they get down and cannot come back, please ask it again because we'll come back to it. But again, I truly think the injuries had a big part in Duke not being able to stay with the team, come back on the team, see Louisville and Florida State.
All right, at Big Papa RV has some stats for you, Brian. These are some ugly
Yes.
stats. These are some ugly stats,
Oh,
so we're not gonna like them.
oh boy.
Uh,
Okay.
Starting QBs have completed 8 passes per game and have a 41% completion percentage, 32 of 78 over the past 4 games. Is it now time to acknowledge that we have a passing game problem? He doesn't want any more excuses about competition and run success.
Next. No,
Look,
I mean,
it's a
yeah.
problem, man. It's an issue. It's an issue. I don't know what the answer is. I think we've touched on it already. I mean, there's got to be something to be said about the offensive line being there be injuries on offensive line. There's got to be something to be said about Riley's ankle, and the timing there, and just the pain tolerance that he has. The lack of ability to run the ball in the last couple of games for Riley, or not his lack of being able to run, the lack of Duke calling for him to run, which is understandable. That is all a recipe for an unsuccessful pass game.
And we've said it since the beginning of the season. We were truly expecting this team to be more pass heavy with Riley in the backfield, and it just with the way the defenses have given Duke a chance to run the ball. I mean, why change it? That Louisville game was truly the first game of the year to where they had a answer for everything in the backfield.
All right, moving on to at Dangerous Dave _4. He looking ahead to the weight game Thursday night on short rest with multiple key injuries. How do you think we fare against a or he's concerned about us coming out against a desperate Wake Forest team? How do we feel about it? And I know Josh feels the same way I do, so we'll let you go.
No, I'm just gonna say I'd flip that. I think Duke is ready to get back on that freaking football field. That's my thought. Like I think those guys, if we know Dwayne Carter, we know Jacob Monk, we know Graham Barton, we know Riley Leonard. Just go down the list of those senior leaders: Jalen Calhoun, Jordan Waters. They want to get back on that field, and whether or not I understand the injury thing, that we may not, we'd have 2 fewer days to get guys back from injury, but I think our guys are ready to get back on that field more than Wake is, and I think Duke. That's the attitude Duke better have. They better come out Thursday saying, "Hey, we want to be out here. We wish we could have played Tuesday because we're ready to go beat somebody." So that's what I'm hoping the attitude is.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say that I think the 41-16 loss to Florida State didn't hurt half as bad as the 23-0 loss to Louisville. And I think that's if we don't see on the first drive something different, then there may be some questions. But I think this team on the short rest is going to be ready. I think Coach Elko is going to have them as prepared as they were for Clemson in game 1.
Scott, didn't we only lose 38-20?
Yeah,
To
the Florida
Florida
State.
What'd you say, like 41-16?
No, 41-16 is what Wake Forest got beat by last Saturday by Florida State.
Oh, my bad, man.
And
Sorry.
Wake has lost 4 of their last 5 games too.
Yeah.
And Wake sucks.
Yeah, and it's going to show in my prediction like that Wake is not good enough. I'm not going to give it away.
Wake
And
sucks.
Yeah, and speaking of Wake, folks, sorry we did not coordinate an interview. For those of you wondering, hey, where's the interview?
Wake sucks.
We we didn't lock one down. That's on us. Sorry, but more time for the mailbag. Speaking of which, Jamie.
All right, at CB Jones 725. I thought this was a good question. Do we think the what happened in the fourth quarter at FSU influenced our performance at Louisville? I think there was definitely some of that there, but also Louisville influenced our performance at Louisville as well. So
They did, but I mean, as I said at the beginning, very first play from scrimmage when we had the ball on offense, I'm like, oh Lord, we're not here. Like we're not here. And then their very first play from scrimmage, we're like, oh no, I don't believe we're going to be able to stop this. And so I think so, Jamie. To answer that question straight up, honestly, I think there was a little bit of hangover from the Florida State loss. I absolutely do. I think the guys, knowing that there was some more injuries as well. Evidently, Graham's injury didn't just hop up on them, Friday. I think they knew about it. Knowing you're going in without him, I don't know, man. And here's the deal. Here's what we don't know. How many injuries are there on the team and the guys are playing through them? And their teammates know they're not 100%. And so there's all that kind of like angst. And I think it came to a head this past week. So I absolutely think that the Florida State fourth quarter impacted a little bit of Louisville.
all right, moving on to Facebook. Pradeep. He says, with a tough schedule, our 3 losses are to 3 of the 4 best teams in the ACC. And ND and FSU use tight ends to get us. And Louisville probably use that film to pick us apart throughout the middle of the week. How do you think we respond? And we kind of said something about this a little bit ago. I think we're going to respond really well. I think the team's going to be ready to play, and I think they're going to come out and get that 6th win and get bowl eligible fairly easily.
Wake doesn't have the horses that Notre Dame. That's right, the caballos. They don't have the horses that Notre Dame or Florida State have. Like they're not physically able to do to Duke what Florida State. Honestly, my opinion, they're not physically able to do what Florida State, Louisville, or Notre Dame were able to do to Duke. Like they just don't have the physical talent and abilities. So I don't think they can just pick us apart like that. They're not. Look, they've got some skilled players, and I'm saying Wake sucks during this whole episode because I believe it. But they have some individual good players, like they always do. Listen, Wake always has some good individual defensive players, good individual offensive players. They're okay, but like at the end of the day, I do think you see Duke maybe adjust some things one of the frustrating things that we noticed in Louisville game is in the first half, Duke did a lot of those stretch runs where they're asking their running back to go out wide and then trying to find the hole and hit it. And we figured out we do so much better when we go north-south and we just run the ball either straight up the middle or right down the side. A guy like Jordan Waters, if Jordan has got to pick his spot, he winds up tiptoeing and he doesn't get there. If he is allowed to run north-south, he's one of the most effective runners in the conference. And so I do think we maybe adjust some of that stuff and really just try to pound the football down their throat and not worry about those getting to the outside necessarily.
Hey, look, for what it's worth, Sam Hartman is not walking through Wake Forest's dressing room Thursday night.
Or any other competent quarterback.
All right, Roger Helms says the team looks worn down mentally and physically. What can coaches do to revitalize both going forward to get back on track? That's a hard question to answer. I don't know.
$1,000,000 question.
Right.
I have no idea. Go to Frankie's. I have no clue. I have no idea because they're tired, and it's just that part of the season where it's like you got to put your big boy britches on, and like you got to come out and play football. And like I don't know how you get them to like maybe they need to take it more seriously, or maybe they need to chill. You know what I mean? I don't know what the need is on the team, but that's why they pay Mike Elko the big bucks.
I'm wondering if they're going to give them an extra day or two of rest after the Wake game. Take Friday, Saturday off,
Probably.
and then come back Sunday for film review, and then Monday we're back on the field.
Start the week off just like you regularly would with a couple days rest. I mean, let's be honest. We've kind of beaten this one. We don't know the injuries. It's not something they could do in 3 days, 4 days. It's something they would have to do after the Wake game if they're going to do anything to maybe rest or whatever. So at this point, just probably limit it to walkthroughs as much as you possibly can over the next couple days. Get the game plan installed, ready to roll, and do what you got to do.
Billy Potter on Facebook. With teams pinning their ears back, coming full blast at Raleigh, what do we not call? Why do we not call more screens, middle screens, leak the tight end out? Also, not many passes to the running backs, and it's just not slowing down the rush. He's getting full on blitzed like a Louisville. But once again, that Louisville defensive line, probably the best we've played. Them or Florida State, I guess.
Look, I'm an old school guy, very much, obviously. I wish that Duke, for the last 15 years, would use the old school running back screen pass. And because there's obviously 3 horses back in that stable that you get the football with them and a blocker in open space, it's going to be like the 85-yard touchdown or whatever. So at this, I would love to see that, but we've not seen that happen in years where we've thrown too many of those wide receiver screens that almost got a pick six Saturday because it was behind, and thank God whoever jumped up in front of it knocked it out of the defender's hand.
Yeah, I think there's another question coming about play calling, maybe on 3rd and 4th and short. I'm not sure if you're going to get to that one. Jamie, is it?
There was one. Yeah, it was. I'm sorry, I missed it. I scrolled past it. It was at Big Papa RV had asked it again. He's like, "Why were we lining up on in a shotgun?
Yeah,
on short yardage downs again."
Okay, so yeah, we can always question that stuff, right? The play calling, like at the end of the day, and I think Kevin Johns would be like, "Hey, fans, completely cool. Like you can question the play calling. I don't understand it. I don't understand how we could be so successful at throwing the ball to the backs out of the backfield in the Clemson game and the Notre Dame game, and for some reason we don't use it in other games. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not an offensive coordinator and play caller, so I don't know what they're seeing and what they're not seeing, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Definitely doesn't make any sense to me when we need to go less than 3 feet forward and we hike the ball 6 feet backwards or 9 feet backwards. Makes no sense to me. Tush push is great, or as
a bush push,
or as the Eagles did on Sunday, the fake tush push, and DeAndre Swift scored on a end around, basically. But at the end of the day, and I don't understand it all, but you know what? That is what it is. I mean, listen, if we've can learn anything from like NC State fans Like they've complained about play calling for 40 years. And it's like they get a new play caller in, they bring in a new coordinator, a new play caller, and it's the same old crap. So at the end of the day, the one thing that I think we have learned, our podcast guys, as we've gotten closer to the football team and been able to go to practices preseason and whatnot, a lot there's the play calling matters a lot less than what we really think. Like we think it's like, oh, if they call the exact right play here, and every now and then, for sure that's right. But for the most part, it's really not about the play that's called. It's about can we beat the man in front of us. And when Duke does that, it looks great. When we don't, it doesn't look good.
By the way, all 4 of us are going to be offensive coordinators starting next summer.
Dude, I'm Madden. I'm like a Madden 08. I'm really
No,
good.
no. NCAA football 25.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'll be ready.
Yep,
I'll be
it's
ready.
time to restart the dynasty, baby.
Brian's
All
gonna
right.
have Drake May.
Yeah, on the bench.
All right, we got a last question. Regina Lee, she wants us to objectively break down the fundamentals that are falling short on both sides of the ball, and then talk about the achievable adjustments that can be made to get this team on a successful track as key players try to get healthy.
Hey, Regina, come November 9th, Coach Santucci is going to be talking to the Durham Devils Club.
Yep.
You can probably
Trinity
ask
Club,
him that.
Trinity Club members and above. No, I mean I can answer one. I'll answer one aspect of it. The wide receivers. The wide receivers have got to create separation. That's what that position group can do. And the answer to that question is, it's got to be something to do with play calling for sure to help them get separation. But it's also got to be the ball's got to be thrown to the right spot. There's been a lot of balls thrown behind receivers. There's been a lot of balls just too high, whatever. But wide receivers have got to get off the line of scrimmage, and they've got to get separation. So I will. That's my wide receiver help. Anybody
Okay,
got any other stuff, Scott?
I would say this. We've seen it in a couple key situations. The arm tackling. We have a lot of arm tackling on plays that, I mean, dude, you got to wrap up. The team is a whole lot better when they gang tackle. But with this whole throwing a shoulder out there, just trying like whatever, it doesn't work. And we've seen that not go in our favor over the many years of Duke football.
That's it, right? We're done?
Shout
Santa's
out Regina. Regina
Yes.
oftentimes will watch this before you guys wake up tomorrow morning. She's a West Coast YouTube watcher.
She gets the notification as soon as it drops, right?
There's a couple. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you for that. So, time to move on, fellas, to one of our newest segments that we have thoroughly enjoyed over the last year and a half. It's This Week in Duke Football History. Scott came with a banger last week leading up to the Louisville game. So, Scott, what do you have for us this week?
All right, we're going to go not way back. We're going to go back a little bit. Back when Peter Dodge was a little bit of a youngster. Back to October the 30th, 1954. Your number 16 ranked Duke Blue Devils would mount its largest comeback in program history against an ACC opponent, playing against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Duke was down 20-0 in the third quarter to the Yellow Jackets. Duke would score 21 unanswered points in the final 17 minutes of the game, with a decisive score and extra point coming with 42 seconds remaining in the game. The 1954 team would be one of the most successful Duke teams of all time, as they would go 8-1 and go on to win the Orange Bowl against the Nebraska Cornshuckers. And that was This Week in Duke Football History, brought to you by Bull City Sheet Metal. No matter what your duck needs, if air goes through it, they make it. Give them a call today at 919-354-0993 or visit bullcitysheetmetal.com.
I'm trying to do my best there.
Yeah, I was going to say, great catch there.
It depends on whose screen it's on.
Right. No, I got you. But we've actually seen that Orange Bowl trophy. It's in the Blue Devil Tower. That is a sweet-looking trophy, and it still has the oranges from that day when they put them in there after Duke won. So, good times.
Yep, for sure. Well, Scott, we appreciate that. Always looking back on the history there. Shout out to our guy, Peter Dodge. loyal listener, avid Duke fan. If all Duke fans were as loyal to Duke as Peter Dodge, then Wallace Wade would be full every week. And so shout out to him. Moving on now to our next segment, not yet sponsored, guys. We're still asking for it, not yet sponsored segment called Tell the Tape. We've been doing this since the very first season of our existence. It's Brian's chance to deep dive on our opponent and then give us, at the end of the Tell the Tape, a Did You Know? He has teased us that the Did You Know this week is very good. So we'll see if it lives up to Brian's hype. Brian,
I don't know if this one's going to be as close as Big Tudor with Kansas last year. It might be close. All right, Tell the Tape. Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Last year, Wake Forest went 8-5 and made it to the Gasparilla Bowl, where they would defeat Missouri, I should say, 27-17. Last week, as we said earlier, Wake Forest was defeated by FSU 41-16. Now, Wake is currently 4-4 overall and 1-4 in the ACC. Dave Clawson's in his 10th season as the head coach of the Demon Deacons and has an overall coaching record of 63 wins and 57 losses. He's also 5-4 in bowl games. Now, before coming to Wake in 2014, Clawson had head coaching stints at Bowling Green, Richmond, and Fordham. Clawson also had assistant coaching positions in Tennessee, Villanova, Lehigh, and Buffalo. Now, overall, this is the 103rd matchup all time between Duke and Wake Forest. And Duke leads the series matchup against Wake 59-41 with 2 ties. The first ever meeting between Duke and Wake Forest took place in Raleigh, North Carolina, all the way back on May 29th, 1889, where Wake would defeat Duke 32-0. Now, after their 1893 matchup, Duke and Wake would not play again until 1921, and that was due to Duke not fielding a team over safety concerns. Since 1921, however, the two teams have played each other every year except for 2020 due to COVID restrictions. The last time Duke won back-to-back games against Wake Forest was when the Blue Devils defeated Wake 4 years in a row from 2012 to 2015. And Duke won last year's matchup against Wake 34-31. Before last year's victory, Wake had a 3-game winning streak heading into the game. Mike Elko, of course, is 2-0 all-time against Dave Clawson. Once when he was at Notre Dame as the defensive coordinator in 2017, and of course, last season. Now it's time for the Did You Know? While Wake Forest has their own version of rolling their quad with toilet paper after big sports victories, there's another unofficial tradition for Wake Forest students involving the university's courtyard. Legend has it that before a student can be considered an official graduate of the school, they must first streak through the main part of the quad. This rule pertains to all Wake Forest students. Now, while no one can accurately pinpoint when this unofficial tradition started, the most participation ever from the student body occurred in 1974 when the Great Streak of 1974 commenced. The streak started when students witnessed 4 co-eds wearing paper bags on their heads ran through the quad naked. The rest of the entire student body quickly followed suit thereafter, running through the quad naked, all with paper bags on their heads. Now remember, folks, this used to be a Baptist college. While the school does not acknowledge the tradition officially, the GoDeeks.com website does mention the tradition by saying, quote, "In polite society, many may deny they ever did it. But in all honesty, there are a few here who didn't have at least one wild night beneath the elms." And that was the tell of the tape for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. We're going streaking! We're going streaking! Yeah!
Come on, Snoop. You can bring your big green hat.
I again,
A little cold out there, Frank?
honey, we're going to Home Depot?
We're going to
So-
Taco Bell.
So again, funny story. We were driving through Wake Forest the other day, me and my wife, and I was like, "Hey, this is where Wake Forest started." And then it got me thinking, okay, they used to be a Baptist school, and now I'm going to be talking about students streaking through.
Dude, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, what year was this? Like, that
Yeah.
was a straight up Baptist, like, seminary school.
Mm-hmm.
1974. All the students.
Man.
I mean,
Them wild
Okay.
and freaky preachers, man.
Okay, here's my question. If you're a Wake grad and you're watching this or you're listening to this, comment and let us know, one, if it's still happening, and two, if you did the official graduation ceremony before you graduated.
Oh,
Or
yes,
if
they
you knew
call it a
someone.
streak.
Yes, or you knew someone that did
Exactly.
it.
Don't
Yeah.
don't sell yourself
Asking
out.
for a
Just-
friend. Asking for a
Right.
friend.
So yeah, that took a little bit of research, but I'm glad I found it.
Yeah, no, that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. You don't listen. You don't find stuff like this on your regular other Duke podcasts. You know, this is what you get when you listen to Section 17. We bring you all things that matter on the football field and things that don't. And so
Through the quad.
through the quad into the gymnasium. So anyway, well, listen, a couple of things real quick before we head into our kind of final segment here where we do our predictions. That is, you are currently listening to us or watching us. You're watching us on YouTube. We're going to ask you to subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a comment or two. Appreciate that. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, would you give us a 5-star rating and review? The reviews really help us. And once again, we always say this, we've earned a 5-star review. Would you give it to us? If we haven't, that's fine. Leave it alone. No problem. If you're listening to us on Spotify or some other form of podcast listening, if you could leave us a 5-star rating, if they offer that, that would be really cool. We really appreciate the support. Would you tell somebody about the podcast? We are meeting people, new people. I was at lunch this past week over in Durham off of 9th Street and had a guy say, "Hey, are you Josh from Section 17 podcast?" I said, "Yeah." This was cool. I said, "Do you recognize my voice?" Because most people recognize my voice. He said, "No, I actually watch you guys on YouTube. I knew what you look like." I was like, "Dude, that's awesome." So tell your friends about it, though. Let's keep getting the word out about Duke football. Our job and our goal is this podcast is to help promote the brand of Duke football. And so be pushing that out. DukeFootballTalk.com is where you can go. We have merch there. We have our podcast episodes there. Find out a little bit more about what we do there at DukeFootballTalk.com. We're at Duke FB Talk everywhere else. Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. So I think that's all about I have for my commercial. But we will head now into our predictions. But before we give our predictions in the line for this week's game, let's talk about who got closest last week on social media.
As much as it pains to say me, there were folks who predicted Louisville to win. It is what it is. Okay. On Twitter, we mentioned him already. Big Papa RV predicted Louisville to win 27-17. On Facebook, Steve Barbie, I believe he already got a prediction earlier this season. He predicted Louisville to win 24-17. And then on Instagram, I don't know if this is Big Papa RV or not, but Big Papa Elf. So we've got Big Papa RV and Big Papa Elf. He predicted Louisville to win 24-17. And one housekeeping note, folks. You cannot give if Henry plays, the score is going to be this. If Riley plays, the score is going to be this. If you do that, I'm going to just cancel it out. So you got to only come in with one prediction, regardless of who's the quarterback, regardless of who's the running back, whether I'm coaching or Coach Elko's coaching, one score prediction only. All right, I'm done.
And we'll try to put this out soon. We know Duke will be dropping the jersey combo maybe Tuesday. I'm not really sure. So we're going to try to get this out early this week. You guys get your picks in. But we'll give you our picks, what we think, who's going to win, what the score is going to be, and what Duke is going to wear. What are the lines sitting at now?
Yeah, so Duke is actually a 12.5-point favorite. It was 11 on.
It went up. Well,
yeah, it went up 2.5
in a couple hours.
Yeah, that's right. 12.5-point favorite. Over under is only 45 points. So with that, I'll just go ahead and get started. It seems that's an easy way to do it. So this is going to be a game Duke gets back on track for. Again, Louisville is a very, very good team. I think Wake's still trying to figure out their identity this season. I think Dave Clawson's actually mentioned that a couple of times, trying to figure out some of the ins and outs. They've lost 4 of their last 5. I've got Duke winning this one 24-14, so I'm actually going to take the under here. I don't see a lot of scoring, whether Raleigh's in it or not. I just think they're going to pound the ball like they've done for the majority of their games. They're going to get back to their true game plan. As far as the jerseys, I'm going to go with a combination that hasn't been seen in 2 years. I'm going to go with the blue helmet with the Gothic white script, black. Blue top, black jerseys, black bottoms. Last time those were seen was against Georgia Tech in 2021. They did the blue helmet with the white script right there. that's right behind me with the black jerseys. I think they're going to break that out again because Wake has the gold chrome helmet, the black chrome helmet, and they're all black. So I could see Duke going with the blue helmet. So 24-14, blue, black, black. Who's next?
I'll go. I think as far as a uniform combo, just because this is what I want to see, so I'm going to say it. I want to see a blue out, blue, blue, blue. Big, large white D. But I was leaning whether I wanted to go with that or go with like the white Gothic script. But I'll go large white D. And as I alluded to earlier, I think Duke has no trouble with Wake. I think I'll take the over. Duke 38, Wake 13.
All right, I'll go next. It's Thursday night. It's an in-state opponent. I mean, I know it's a week before UNC. We can't come with a Hellraiser, can we? We're not going to do the Hellraiser a week before Carolina. It's not going to happen. Okay.
Let's just put that one to bed.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. All right. Then let's stick with the fact that Coach Elko likes this Gothic Duke. So I'm going to go blue out like Jamie. That's what I want to see. Blue out with the blue helmet with the white Gothic Duke. We'll go that. I agree with both of the other guys and the fact that I believe Duke gets back on track this week. I believe Duke's going to come in, or they better come in angry this week. And so I am going to pick Duke 31, and I'm going to say that the Wake Forest Demon Deacons will have 13. So 31-13, Duke spanks the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Scott.
All right. Well, I hate to agree with the crowd because it's never fun, but I do believe the blue out would be nice. I would really prefer to see the Hellraiser, but yeah, I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm gonna go with it. Just we could throw a little curveball in there because I don't want to be exactly like everybody else. However, I do believe in the back of my mind it's going to be the Gothic white Duke, and that's beautiful with all the blue out. As far as the score, I really think it's probably going to be something like 28-13. I don't know if a lot of points will be scored either way. Obviously, we'd love to see Duke score about 60 to nothing would be really nice because I need to get that 0 to help me on my picks for the shutout. So yeah, we're going to go 28-13. Duke with the victory. And one thing we may be getting ready to discuss this, but there is no tailgate this week. Thank you, Duke, for being a school instead of being intelligent people. And the Blue Devil Walk will be at the Whitford Circle by the Scott family store at 5 o'clock.
That's right there by Cameron.
Right
and
by
the Scott
Cameron.
Medlin Medical Room.
Memorial
Yes.
Medical
Well, you
Room.
got to go a little bit further to get there.
That's
true.
true.
But
Yeah, so just so you know, that's that circle that's right there by the baseball field, by Cameron, by the Nike store, by the ticket office. That's where that will be. You got to figure it out on your own though, because the lots don't open until 5, and that's supposed to happen at 5. So maybe get to your lots a little early, or maybe there's some other tricks that we won't share on the podcast of how you can get parked on campus earlier. But we
hopefully they'll
won't
open
mess
it
it
a
up.
few minutes early so you can get there. 'Cause a Blue Devil Walk with 40 people really is not that exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's been a good episode, guys. We obviously all 4 of us. I think you guys know this. We are Duke fans through and through. This podcast, we are okay. We'll admit this. We are friends of the program, right? So we try to be fair and honest about the team, but we also understand just the dynamics of kind of what goes on. And so we're probably a little bit more positive than what some of you are, and that's okay. But you guys know we're going to be fair and we're going to be honest. And so hopefully this team bounces back. Make sure you're there if you can be there Thursday night. Come out, support Duke team, as Scott mentioned earlier in his sermon. If you can't make it, make sure that you are at least watching on TV to help those ratings there on ESPN this Thursday night at 7:30. So I think that's everything. We mentioned the Durham Devils Club. We're good to go on that. Thank our sponsors one more time. Bull City Sheet Metal, Comfort Mechanical Contractors, and all our friends over there. Brian, if there's nothing else, man, close us out.
Yeah, another great episode in the books. Of course, Wake Forest again, 7:30 Thursday night. And after the Saturday games, we should know the kickoff time for the big rivalry game next Saturday, the battle for the Victory Bell in Chapel Hill as Duke takes on Chapel Hill College. So we'll be back next week to give our thoughts and our overall perspective on all things Duke Wake Forest, as well as the upcoming game against North Carolina. We should have an interview coming next week. We're already in the works to do that since we couldn't do it this week. But hey, it comes with the territory. But another episode in the books. We look forward to seeing as many of you as possible Thursday night. We will be there live, prime time, section 17. But that will do it for us. For Josh Cox, for Jamie Holt, for Scott Medlin, and producer Justin Sykes, I'm Brian Kennedy, and this has been another episode of the Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast.
Now turn the music up.